We are back again on your screen to ensure that we bring you nothing but the best in terms of what is happening in entertainment, education, and other various sectors. I'm your host, Miriam Kayamba, and of course, in studio, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague, Patrick Soko, and we'll be taking you in an hour or so where we're going to be looking at various issues that are happening in our society. A lovely good morning to you, our viewers, and good morning to you, Soko. How are you?
Fine, and how are you, Miriam? How is it going?
Well, it's going well. It's a positive Monday.
A positive Monday with a new look.
Yeah. In fact, you didn't even say anything about
You're
my new
looking
look.
nice. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Why are you trying to interrupt me before I proceed further and you give the compliment? You're looking nice, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, on a positive Monday, you need to look nice so that, you know, you motivate yourself
You
more.
continue to encourage people to have a positive Monday.
Yes, it's very important. And I know that coming from, is it Saturday where we lost the game? A lot of people were so disappointed, but still we still have hope. Yeah, we need to stay positive.
Indeed, it is a positive Monday, so we'll continue being positive so that we see how this positivity will lead us for the rest of the day.
Exactly. Anyway, moving forward, we just go direct into our health corner and just see what the doctors have for us this morning.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. I am Dr. Nakubiana Mfaya. So this week we want to talk about something that is affecting many people, and so many people are having this condition mostly because they are at risk of having this condition. So we want to talk about stroke. We'll talk about what is a stroke or what is stroke, and also we'll talk about some of the risk factors and causes of a stroke. How does it come about? How does one get stroke? And also we'll discuss how it's diagnosed and how it can be treated in the hospital. And we'll also talk about what you can do to prevent yourself from getting a stroke. So today we'll discuss what is a stroke. A stroke usually occurs in the brain, and it's caused by having brain cells that are damaged due to lack of oxygen or lack of blood flow to that part of the brain. So a stroke is brain damage that occurs due to lack of blood flow to that part of the brain or due to a blockage in the brain. So there are different types of stroke that one person or a person can have, and depending on the type of stroke, the treatment also varies for the different types of stroke. So we have three main types of stroke. The first one is what we call ischemic stroke. So ischemic stroke usually occurs when there's a blockage in a vessel or a blood vessel in the brain. So this blockage can be due to a blood clot that has come from somewhere else in the body. It can also be due to high cholesterol. So if there's a buildup of cholesterol in the body, it can form clots in certain blood vessels. So the other thing that can cause ischemic stroke is buildup of certain compounds that can cause blockages, especially calcium compounds that can cause blockages in some vessels and cause blockages, and it can lead to having a stroke. So the second type of stroke that is known as hemorrhagic stroke. A hemorrhagic stroke usually occurs when there's a bleed in the brain. So a blood vessel has ruptured in the brain. If there's a blood vessel that has ruptured in the brain, then it can cause blood to leak into the brain tissues, and that can cause a stroke. So the other type of stroke, the third type of stroke is a mini stroke. We call it a mini stroke because it doesn't last for a very long time. Usually it lasts for about an hour. If it extends, then it resolves within 24 hours. So this is known as a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA. So when you have a TIA, you present with symptoms that are more of a stroke. You have a mini stroke, basically. So there's a blockage, which may be a partial blockage in the brain, but the blood flow is still there. So the symptoms of having a stroke might be there, but they might not be very, very significant. So, and they might not last for too long. So somebody might even, some might even last for about 30 minutes to an hour. And if it extends, it might last for 24 hours, but it usually resolves by the time it's 24 hours. So those are the three main types of stroke that are there. And so with these types of stroke, people can present differently. And tomorrow we'll discuss some of the causes of stroke, what really happens, like what are some of the risk factors for people that have stroke that can cause them to have stroke. So today we were learning what is a stroke, and we say that stroke occurs when there's brain injury that is caused by a blockage or a bleed in the brain that causes that part of the brain to have less oxygen and less blood supply. And so you end up having symptoms of somebody that has a stroke that we'll talk about on a different day. So make sure that you watch the Breakfast Show here on Camnet TV, and we'll see you next time.
Well, there you have it. Welcome back. You're still watching the Camnet Breakfast Show Monday edition, where we focus about nothing but community, and we'll be bringing you some of the stories making the headlines in the community news, and we want to get interacting with you, our dear viewers. Later on in the program, we'll have our guest who's going to help us discuss our various issues, and just now we go straight into the money market so that we can get to understand how the kwacha is performing against other major convertibles. So now $1 is buying at 19 kwacha 28 ngwe and selling at 19 kwacha 66 ngwe. The Greater British Pound is buying at 24 kwacha 79 ngwe and selling at 25 kwacha 27 ngwe. The Euro is buying at 25 kwacha 45 ngwe and selling at 21 kwacha 87 ngwe. The South African Rand is buying at 1 kwacha 08 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 10 ngwe. So those are your money market updated as of today, 24th of July 2023 at 0719. So that's how the kwacha is trading. In case you want to trade or exchange your money, you know how you are trading. They do vary from one bureau de change to the other, one financial institution to the other, but the ranges are almost in the similar bandwidth.
I'm going to start keeping dollars these days. Huh?
Really?
I think it's a good thing when you're keeping dollars these days. Yeah, because we see it increasing. But then we're moving on to zooming in some of the stories that made headlines over the weekend. We did see last week that you know, the local authority came into action and removed street vendors from the CBD, and we have seen now various stakeholders, you know, among them Chawama Ward 3, John Ward 3 Councillor Mr. Piri calling that, you know, these people should utilize markets which are in the compound, and like all everyone, you know, are finding themselves in the CBD. So he was calling that, you know, a lot of people have abandoned markets which were constructed at a huge cost, hence calling on you know, marketeers to go and trade on that place. And well, despite calling on the marketeers, you know, the area councillor did, you know, allude to the fact, acknowledge that, okay, you know what, we need to do a few maintenance on these structures because they have been abandoned for a long time and people did vandalize the property. But anyway, let's get direct into playing the story and we'll continue with our discussion when we come back. For quite some time, thousands of stands in various markets across the city had been abandoned by traders for various reasons, with the majority opting to trade from the street. With the recent move by the local authorities to remove all vendors from the street, John Howard, Ward 3 councillor, calls on traders to utilize markets in compounds, has other alternatives designated trading places following their removal from the Central Business District (CBD). Commissioned in April 2021, John Howard Market, located in Chawama constituency, is one of the markets that has also been forsaken for all these years, leaving the place to rot. The ward councillors, however, noted the need to do some renovation at John Howard Market before the local authority may compel the traders to use the facility because some structures are in a deplorable state.
You know, as a local authority, again, we have a problem of paying salaries. So we expect money to come from there. So I think this is something that we need to work together with the community. And I would also want to I think, commend the government, which I'm part of, and the Minister of Local Government for, I think, the removing of street vendors from the CB, because it also helps us, because they need to come and trade from here. This is their community.
He, however, admits that there have been various attempts in the past to compel the traders to use the facility, but to no avail.
You are right, it's almost like a white elephant, but we are doing everything possible. I think this time around, I think we also have one challenge, actually. The toilets are not okay. They're deplorable, they have been vandalized and all that. And I think it would be it will be a laughable matter if we start urging the marketeers to move in the market when the toilets are not operating. So we are working hand in hand. I think I've given directive to our housing department to ensure that those toilets are operational. And once that is done, I think we have also engaged the marketeers, discussing with them how best I think we can work together and see to it that they start trading from inside.
Meanwhile, Clean Cities Initiative Chief Executive Officer Watts Mwila has urged the United Party for National Development administration to put a strong policy.
You know, during elections, you know, law and order breaks down because people, they feel they own it all, or if I'm chased out of the street, then I'll not vote for them. It's not true. Okay, illegality will always be legalities, and it doesn't matter whether political affiliation or race, religion, or whatever it is. I think if we set the standards now, we should be speaking the same language, even in 2025 when they start the campaigns. And we say, no, you know, what we agreed is that we are going to maintain the cities, and the street vendors will be kept in their places, and then they'll be sustained from there. But over and above, these are human beings. Okay, so have we achieved what we said that we're going to? Because if we have the facilities built now, between now and then, we don't expect that people would kind of break the law and then come to the street and start doing what they're doing now.
Street vending has for a long time posed a significant impact on Zambia's economic activity, as well as negatively affected the health and social security of many Zambians, especially in the capital city, Lusaka. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News. Quite interesting views there. One other important aspect that Mr. Mwila brought out, Soko, was that, you know, yes, we have seen the local authority have come into action and remove the vendors from the CBD, this in order to bring sanity and, you know, maintain our city. But the fear is that, you know, sometimes we have seen, you know, most of the times previous governments have done that, but when it's near the elections, we see vendors slowly coming back. Should it be attached with political?
So because the vendors know that if it is during political time, they want chases from the streets because they are fearful of losing votes.
For votes, yeah.
So the politicians tend to relax, and the local authorities, there's nothing they can do. But for me, I think the local authorities owe the Zambian people to make sure that they do the right thing. And if we do the right thing, we won't be able to be repeating the same mistakes we've been making. Even if we want to authorize the vending, we can still do vending in an organized manner. And who is responsible to do that? It is the Lusaka City Council in the case of Lusaka. So we cannot be using the excuse of politics. So politics aside, we have to make sure that we uphold the guidelines that we have set for ourselves to follow. So the guidelines have to be followed to the latter, regardless of the period, whether it is during the election time, whether it is the time for like now. The situation has to be the same.
Yeah,
We have to make sure
I basically I agree with you. The situation has to be the same. When it's an election, I don't expect things to change. You know, it's quite sad that we'll put laws and then, you know, try to break those laws because we want to solicit votes and stuff like that. That shouldn't be the case. If we're going to put a law, then everyone needs to follow. And already we have seen and heard from the local authority that, you know, street vending is illegal. And why should we allow an illegal thing to continue happening? By the way, we are talking about maintaining our city and keeping it clean. So let's do the right thing.
So the difficult part was the same undertaking of removing them from the street. Now the easy part is maintaining the street.
Yeah.
So they should now do the easy part,
Exactly.
because the difficult part was that one. That was not easy.
And
And now
yes, we don't want to see any excuse. The city should be clean at all time.
Yes, even them now in terms of collecting the garbage like they used to, they have to make sure that the CBEs who have been contracted to be collecting garbage in the CBD, they should be working effectively to make sure that this thing does not reoccur, because sanitation levels in the city were bad. And we want to see an improvement. And the excuse was that people were trading everywhere and anywhere, and they were throwing all sort of rubbish from everywhere. So it was difficult to make the city tidy. Now that we have quite some levels of sanity at the moment, I think it should be easy for community-based enterprises to be managing the garbage there. We shouldn't be having the excuse. Besides, the level of the garbage that was being generated in the city has reduced now, considering that there are no people who are throwing this garbage. So I think now what is also key from the part of the government is to make sure that they continuously give these people the alternative trading places, which they assured, because they said the argument was that they have alternative trading places, that markets are empty and people should go to the markets. Now, what we are expecting to see is that they should live up to the expectation and make sure that the markets, people go and occupy those markets. But it won't be good if people are going to be going to the authorities and requesting for trading spaces, and yet they are not there. So we are expecting that, as assured by the local authority, people should be able to find somewhere to trade from, and that's what we are expecting from as a general public. We expect that whatever government has said, that there are a lot of empty spaces that can accommodate the vendors, they should do likewise, unlike just talking and on the ground it is something else. So we want, at the end of the day, those people to be safeguarded. Looking at the human face aspect, these people were earning their livelihoods through vending. Now that their livelihood was cut short, what are you doing to make sure that you assist them in terms of providing the trading spaces? So that is the authorities also, in terms of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, as well as the Lusaka City Council, have no excuse on that. They just have to make sure that they do what is right. And besides, before you chip in, there is an interesting aspect where we saw that the Local Government Service Commission did launch a good and progressive program where they came up with what they call a performance appraisals for the local authorities. Now, the performance appraisals for the local authorities have a reflection of how local authorities are performing, and if at all they are conforming to the what they have said they are supposed to do. So now, the Lusaka City Council, among some of the assessments, will be how they handle this issue pertaining to street vending. They have to be assessed based on that. If they are failing or what, why should they be kept? And we saw the local government permanent secretary technical services, Nicholas Piri, also making assurances that those who won't be able to deliver according to the expectations of the people, they risk losing their jobs. So now these are crucial moments, and these are crucial aspects we are talking about when it comes to us as a country governing by the rule of law. You know, the rule of law does just not mean you are taking on politicians who are being involved in corruption cases. It means applying the law where it is applicable. In the case of street vending is illegal in Zambia, and the rule of law entails that anyone who is abrogating the law should be dealt with accordingly. So now, the rule of law does not only apply to politicians; it applies in all social aspects, even this issue. So now we're just going to wait how the authorities will implement this.
Exactly. And one other thing, just to add on, in my observation, I think, moving forward, the local authority, given the fact that everyone wants to be in the CBD, and this is where, business usually takes place. So I think moving forward, when they're constructing markets, these buildings should be two-story buildings. I think it will be able to accommodate a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, moving forward, we have another story where a 43-year-old man of Lusaka's Chawama compound who had cancer, and later on, after having cancer, had his leg amputated, is calling on well-wishers to help him, to assist him with a wheelchair in order to ease his movement. This man says he had been suffering since 2013 and life has not been easy for him. Let's get to look at this story. For a couple of years, 43-year-old Obet Ngosa has been requested to confront a harrowing and almost unthinkable series of challenges. What started as a minor injury eventually became a septic, requiring medical attention and resulting in Obet Ngosa's right leg being amputated. This resident of Lusaka's Chawama compound explains that he was diagnosed with cancer in 2013.
So inamba nchitula sao so kufanya che 2013. So after 2013 2015 sinanjuita batenda ku hospital full bata juisa 2014 2017 ipewa najiwa kwendo ukona kambati idi hapa ni problem ya cancer.
Now broken and able to return to work, this father of three who divorced his wife 4 months before he was diagnosed with cancer is now appealing to well-wishers to assist him with a wheelchair to ease his movement.
After 4 months na kwendo yamba na kunyereza. Otherwise okay hivi anivuta hapo hivi. Anafutika hapo. Vambili maningi venila kinga mkati. Vambili maningi to vala nsoche pogona ponza ni ribi. Mankwala. Na mankwala. Balembera ku hospital baba mamwa. Na mankwala. Na mankwala futi ni ribi futi. Yeah.
His neighbors are also appealing to well-wishers to come on board and assist him.
Sevaneba soche ngati mwakamira vanzanga vakalo timacheza nao penangu the whole day so chabi kai penangu wamapezeka ma challenges yevi vali nayo ngati mwe bakambira mwani so chabi uchenga vatandizireko maningi chabe maendedwe kawapezeka lo badwala hapa kabasakire mundu wapapa paka nao ku kliniki mepe balili hapa ni bakulu basakire mundu wapapa so atiso bambera vova bangani ntawenda ku hospital uchameje batandizirako paka nao pa kliniki so uchenga batandizireko che maningi chabi vanga bwere kubatandizako kumbali ya wheelchair muzo ti mundu ngatoze na kwendo pa first then obapezeka mu situation yaso chimavutako so wheelchair nseti maona challenge wena upeza ti olopochoka mu nyumba bafuna baendolo ba chitebwanji upeza wavutikirira. I'm a neighbor, I'm also a friend, I'm always with him. Timankala now to let bizabazakala kona comfort of him, not thinking voganza maningi. So we are always there to comfort him.
Despite all these challenges, Obet Ngosa is hopeful for a better future and knows this is not how his story ends. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Police officers have continued to maintain their presence in the Central Business District, CBD, following the 18th July operation to remove street vendors and stop contravening by minibus drivers. But now, some police officers operating at Afe Crossroads near Limatawa bus station have been accused of harassment by a bus driver operating in the station. George Court claims he was beaten by 5 police officers who also grabbed a 400 kwacha from him after he allegedly contravened traffic rules at this spot.
Bale tuchitalazi bale tuma ngamwalolesha pageti apa bale isala pageti ngaba isala pageti tula mkushinguluka kulya kwangilayo ni kulya so pakuisa pala bale bloko musibo ngawaka na pale walando kweba na abanchita mugati bale tukongera mugati bambo kutuma ngaba ikata motoka bale mkupakinisha kwangilayo ni kulya bale tupokenda la mama 700 ma 500 ine ne uli pano bampokelenda la mama 400 kwacha na motoka basenda na bonse abantu abo epo bali.
Mr. Koti says police officers pursued him back into the station and went with his minibus, which he later picked up and reported the matter to the police.
Umulandu washile ntwala pa mu pali matawa pa bali kana bangolo mwa ba officer in charge bapa bebiri umulandu nshuwishibe polisi wampokelenda la mani muishiba efyo beshile mkushita kuno tamwishibe abantu makaddazi ba PF balabanyishe mu PF na wanda tabakweti ama manazi ya polisi ba polisi wa ba trendi afuira ishibe fya arrest ya kongeri so police to papa the post tumfweni ko kuno batuchusha babantu.
This reporter went to the spot where the alleged U-turn occurred and found police officers stopping minibuses from engaging in the vice. Limatawa drivers chairperson Nicholas Banda, when contacted for a comment, promised to investigate and issue a comprehensive statement later. Police spokesperson Leah Monga says police will investigate the incident as not even a police officer is allowed to take the law in his or her hands.
We'll investigate that matter and see whether the allegations is leveling against officers are true or not. And if it found that officers really committed that atrocity, then there will be sensitive action will be taken against them. As we have said, if someone commits an offense, you have supposed to give him a charge sheet, which will actually give him 7 days to decide whether to pay there and then, or after 7 days, if they don't agree with the allegation, then the matter goes to court. No one is allowed to be the jury and the court, the arrestants and the court at the same time.
Camnet News, Afias Kaptula in Lusaka.
Quite interesting views there, but we now transition into our interview this morning, where we are joined by the ambassadors for national unity and community welfare. In studio we have the president and vice president for the same organization, Mr. Collins Mulomba, the president, and Paso Banda, the vice president, who are going to help us discuss our topic of discussion this morning, where we're looking at social accountability. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you on set this morning.
Thank you so much.
To begin with, for our viewers who are, we know that you are not first-time guests on this set, but just for the sake of our viewers who are watching you for the first time, what is the Ambassadors for National Unity and Community Welfare all about?
All right. Ambassadors of National Unity and Community Welfare is all about providing holistic transformation of vulnerable people in our communities, especially those who have faced main barriers in our society. So basically, we offload our objectives by trying to curb streetism in Zambia and also trying to curb tribalism, because it has been there all along, whereby the most perpetrators are politicians. So we came in with the idea of making sure that we try to curb tribalism. And not only that, also we are making sure that we mobilize the resources so that we help the vulnerable people in general education institutions and provide a suitable link to those who are seeking to do tertiary education. Sure.
Where are you based?
We are based in Kabwe Central Province.
Do you have offices here in Lusaka?
We don't have, but we have the people we call upline officers. In each and every provincial capital of Zambia, we have the representatives who are there to make sure that we receive all the people coming from rural parts of Zambia so that we link them.
As ambassadors for national unity, another aspect that you look at is social accountability. Let's delve much into that.
Oh, all right. With the social accountability, it's actually where we are addressing issues to do with corruption and trying to make sure that the government officers, or I can say leaders, and also service providers must be held accountable in the way they are executing their duties, daily duties. So it takes us as citizens, not only us as a youth organization, no, everybody has got the right to make sure that we hold our leaders accountable. At the end of the day, we have good provinces in Zambia to be shown, and we also have actually sanity in our country, because many of the times that people face a lot of problems regarding to development. Some of the developments that have been there have been biased for so many times. You find that this province is having a lot of things, that other province is having but there are other provinces which are still in poverty levels. So we address those issues through sensitization programs like this one on TV and also radio stations.
One other thing that you also look at, maybe as youths in Zambia, are we doing enough to ensure that we hold those who are, serving in public office accountable in terms of, how they conduct themselves in terms of doing certain services?
All right. As for us youths, I can say there are very few, of course, who are committed to do social accountability. But what I can say is most of the youths doesn't know the ways of promoting that social accountability, because each and every time, whenever maybe they hear that there is a leader who has maybe misbehaved or this and all that has been done, they will just start rioting, which of course we are against it. Rioting is not a solution. We need to be following our leaders in their offices. We ask them. Probably if I bring in the issue of CDF, Constituency Development Funds, we need to go around their offices to make sure that we ask them how CDF is working, how many people have benefited so far, what kind of people are benefiting. Is it a general public, or is it those politically aligned people? We ask them those questions. Perhaps we can even ask for the records. We have them, so that at the end of the day, we see the people who are benefiting.
Ms. Banda, coming to you, as one thing, like he mentioned, that you also try to ensure that, in terms of addressing issues of surrounding the Constituency Development Fund, which is CDF, have we seen, our leaders helping these youths? Yes, we know they've been taught to go out there, apply for these cooperatives, but have we seen a lot of young people accessing this CDF? And is it, because we've seen a lot of concerns here, have we seen a lot of people, coming up, accessing these constituency development funds easily?
No, I personally haven't seen that. I'm saying this because I feel like the corruption part is so much. Those that are in the forefront, or in the forefront lines, they tend to give to the people that they feel like they should give it to, instead of giving it to the most vulnerable. It's, in a case where, for example, I have a relative in government or in a position that would make me access the CDF. Instead of it being given to somebody who really needs it, they would rather give it to me because it would be like nice at Diego. So I feel like if we could have the youth come in a way that we have youths everywhere in the ministries, they're taking part in the ministries, because I wouldn't say we should take part in the forefront decision making and all that, because we have got a lot of responsibilities. We are young and we do not really know to say, okay, maybe we really want this. So if we could be trained, if we could be taken and mentored under those ministries, under those places, I feel like it will give other youths a wider perspective of it, because if they are told to say, okay, you are a youth, so what do you do in that sector, a youth will be able to relate with the fellow youths. Yes.
Interesting. Well, dear viewers, you are watching the Camnet Breakfast Show, and in studio we have young people helping us to discuss issues pertaining to national unity as well as community welfare. Now, talking about issues pertaining to community welfare, I also want to bring to your attention another interesting aspect. We are talking about the CDF, for example, but are the people having the right mindset or the right knowledge to know how to go about the various processes based on your assessment and the communities that you serve in?
Okay, on that one, what I can say is people doesn't know the procedure which is there in accessing CDF. But as an NGO, we have tried actually, especially in Kawe, to mentor a lot of people on how to go about it. But it's not everywhere, especially in rural areas, because we came through Chibombo. In Chibombo, we questioned some of the few. Some of them were like, no, they don't know even the processes that are involved in accessing. So it took us as a youth NGO, together with the AAAZ organization, which is based here in Lusaka. They came in Kawe to train us to make sure that we also go out there, we sensitize our colleagues on how they can access CDF. So as we have tried to do all that, to bring the people to make sure that they start, they have that access at the end of the day, maybe the money can be disbursed to them. We have tried much. But the thing is that the records that have been there, when they take, especially the general public, it's difficult for them to have that access, because most of the people who are accessing the money are those who are politically aligned. So what I meant by that is there are those who belongs to, let's say, maybe PF, and there are those who belongs to UPND, and there is that general voter who just stands up and go to vote, because those, we don't call them as cadres or political supporters, they just go there to choose their leaders of their choice. But those who are known for those political parties, they are the ones that have been accessing money. For example, in Kawe, that is what has been trending, and most of the people in Kawe, they do report the matters to us because they know that we are actually influencing in terms of promoting social accountability. And we are the people who go direct to these leaders to make sure that we ask them, especially our local leadership. We do go to them. I've faced the provincial minister, faced the DC, and also the council. But the problem again is coming to the council, because council has been given the powers. The first actually process is WDC, which is based on the community. WDC is a Wadi Development Committee. That's where the process starts from. When you submit to the WDC, it will go now to the council. And then the council involves also the MP. But the problem comes in because the chairperson in CDF is politically aligned, because the chairperson is appointed by the MP. That is what is there. So if the WDC submits to the chairperson who belongs to a political party, like in Kawe, like I've mentioned, we have Wacha constituents and we have Kawe Central constituency. For Wacha, we have the sitting member of parliament for PF. And then in Kawe Central, we have the one sitting for UPND, who is our member of parliament. So what is happening there is that in Wacha, the people who are accessing funds, grants and also loans under CDF are those who are aligned to that political party. Then you come to Kawe Central, you look at the lists that are there, because we have even the lists that are there. The people who are accessing are those aligned to UPND political party. So it's something which is shocking at the moment. And I've done through, I cannot actually say I've done it through going the offices or whatever. We have been going to their offices most of the time. I do go with our colleagues to make sure that we ask them. So by now, they don't even want us to be or to show our presence in their offices, because they know that we are on them now to make sure that we bring sanity in everything that they are doing. But ours is advocate, exceptional advocate, whereby we just want to have sanity in everything that is being done in the communities.
Now, Ms. Banda, we understand that the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, is just about among the many empowerment programs, especially that given that you are young people and the Ministry of Youth is responsible to steer empowerment programs in the country. First of all, I want to get it from yourselves as an organization. If at all you feel the Ministry of Youth has been able to provide enough empowerment mechanisms for young people that they can benefit from. I want to get it from the perspective of where you're coming from in Kabwe Central Province.
Okay, so right now there's these, they're getting about 150 people from each province, and they are doing courses that deal with health, majorly health courses. And I feel that's a very good initiative, but what's the guarantee that everyone who is getting that access, that study, so to say, everyone who is studying there is somebody who deserves really to, you know, study there, or is somebody who really is vulnerable? I doubt that. So I feel like, yes, there'll be the things like, you know, yes, quite corruption. Somehow you have a relative, like I'm saying, I would say most of the times it's relatives, because it's like, because we are now here, we also have to partake in this. And so I don't feel that they've done enough, because it's not the most vulnerable that are getting those scholarships. And so I feel and believe if they could investigate more and make sure that it is really the vulnerable, those that cannot afford an education or a higher education and deserve it. They have good papers, they have what they qualify for that. So I believe if the Ministry of Youth, the youths are very, you know, strong, and you know, they can do so much. So I feel like they need to do more. They need to do more, and it's not only the ministry or the people that are spearheading that. I feel like it's every Zambian. Every youth in Zambia should take it upon themselves to say, okay, this is happening. If you are, there are some people who will say things, but they're shy to, you know, actually go and then talk about them to those people, or they're afraid, or, you know, something could happen, or anything, you know, could happen, maybe political wise, and they're attacked or something. But maybe you try to take somebody else, you tell them, you educate them about it, and take it there. Because if we do not do that, who else will? Zambia is tomorrow. It is us who will be the leaders. Tomorrow it is us who will be in these offices. So it starts now. It starts now. That's all I can say.
Coming to you, don't you think somehow the youths, in as much as they can complain that, you know, they haven't been able, you know, to tap from these funds, from the constituency development funds, to form cooperatives, and also utilizing the Ministry of Youths who are giving funds as well to tap from those funds and, you know, empower themselves? Don't you think young people have not shown interest?
Where interest is concerned, like in Kabwe, when we were doing some sensitization programs to do with education, where the CDF comes in, Ministry of Youth, I was with actually the provincial coordinator in the youth ministry, who is there in Kabwe. We did the sensitizations together, but there are people, of course, most of the youths, for now, what they want are empowerment funds. And then there's those actually who would love also to go for education programs. But interest, of course, in men is not there in most of the youths. But what can make those people to have interest is through sensitization programs. So that's where I urge most of the the government leaders to make sure that they bring in sensitization programs. We sensitize, because youths are categorized in 2-3. There are those who have completed grade 12. What they would love is to further their education. And then there are those youths who have completed tertiary education. You can't give them actually funds to go and further education again. No, those empower them. What can you do is by bringing actually jobs, especially in Kabwe, we don't have industries, so on. So they can bring industries there so that these youths who have completed the tertiary education, they start working. And then there are those who have just completed maybe grade 9 and also grade 7 certificate, but they couldn't have that privilege of feathering to grade 10, so I mean to grade 12 there. So those people, they are the ones now that these skills courses must be working on, because if we are to talk of skills programs, like me myself, I'm at Don Bosco Training Skills Center, where I'm doing computer. They are offering about 4 programs. There is food and nutrition, and then there is also computer, then things to do with metal fabrication, and also bricklaying. So those courses, they are these people that I've mentioned, grade 7, grade 9. Take them into those institutions where TAVETA are, so that at least these people acquire these skills. And then after acquiring those skills, that's where now the Ministry of Youth should come in by making sure that they empower them with the equipments. Because even if they complete, if they don't have funds to start their own, then it will be difficult for them to go further. But if the Ministry of Youth can come in, and then it will help the youth to go further, and then also others will get interested because they have seen that there is this group which has gone through skills courses, and then now they are being empowered by the ministry. But one thing that we are not supposed to forget, you and I, is that the only ministry which is actually given a lot of things, a lot of work to do with governing body is local government. Ministry of Youth is not doing anything. That's why even the ministry itself is dormant. Of course, we do hear the minister today, there and there, but is not doing that which we want as a youth, that which we want to see in our country, because most of the things are being done under the local government. If you talk of the empowerment funds, CDF, you cannot get a loan from CDF. CDF is purely meant for community development. It tackles those projects to do with the community. Now that we have the empowerment funds under that, Ministry of Youth has gone dormant, it has gone asleep. There is also other ministries like media and small and medium enterprise. That ministry, what is it doing? There is also Ministry of Technology. So our emphasis is that in as much as we have Ministry of Local Government, which is being run by Mr. Gary Nkombo, who is the minister in that area actually, is supposed also, I'm sure, to form a group which can be regulating these CDF committees, because the committees that are there, of course, no one is regulating the other to make sure that maybe the funds are being put into accountable, or people can question them. Because our leaders, of course, at national level, it can be done well. Them, they can say, okay, CDF is working well, because they don't go through these offices to make sure that they check. Or sometimes they'll come through the constituencies, they'll just check one project, they'll go back to their ministerial positions, but they won't get much needed information to the people who are living in their communities.
Now, interesting, this was, in your preamble, you did mention the aspect of street kids, that you also seek to safeguard the welfare of street kids. We understand, for example, in Lusaka, we had the mopping out of street vendors by the Ministry of Local Government and the Lusaka City Council. Now, the people who are who are remaining, most of them are street kids. Do you have any programs that are targeted at the street kids, especially, for example, here in Lusaka? The hotspot is behind the post office.
Yeah. Okay, on that one, before my colleague comes in, what I can say is the biggest actually employer in everything that we do in Zambia is the government itself. We as an organization, as of now, we don't have the capacity to get those people who are on the streets, because we don't have yet the hostels where we can be keeping those people. But we have the link. We have linkages like where we are in Kabam with Don Bosco. So if we find some street children on the street, we will talk to the father at Don Bosco, and then if the father will say, we have the space there, then the father will go with the committee on the street to make sure that they get those children who are there. But coming to here in Lusaka, here is difficult because the children who are there, they are big. The children that you find, not small ones, because these bigger ones, it's difficult for you to remove them from there. But the only thing that can be done to those who are big is to bring in ZNS. ZNS has a mandate to make sure that they empower those people, especially those who have reached 19, 20. They can be empowered whereby maybe they give them some jobs, or maybe they start studying, they get purified with their brains so that they start working in those areas. ZNS is the only organ which I know that is mandated. I was once actually engaged with one of the schools in Cabo there with ZNS school, where we tried to make sure that we even linked some people there who were on the streets, bigger ones. Because on the street, there are those who have been selling for so long just for making sure that they bring the food on the table. So those, we also call them as street children. But here in Lusaka, we have the money which were released way back to say that money was meant for street children. So it was supposed to be helped here within the province.
You can add to that.
I believe to say if everyone, it's not only the government, for me it's not only the government, but it's the country at large. What are you doing to see a change? What are you doing to help the street kids? We are complaining, no, they are bad, no, they steal, no. But then there's a background, there's somewhere where they're coming from that led to what they are right now. But as an individual, what can you do about it? Even coming back to like everything that we're talking about, I personally believe to say, even you as an individual, a person, a Zambian citizen, what are you doing about it? So you can not only, sometimes it's scary to say, okay, I can't just take this person to my house. What if they are thieves? What if they kill, or however it is? But you can find ways in which you can help. Any way that you can help to say that person is helped. I would like to say, please reach out to these people. Do not be feeling in a certain type of way to say you're scared, they could harm us, they could do that. No, but try to reach out, please.
Most of the times we have seen, we did see back then, like you said in your preamble, that ZNS, came into action, and they had a program where they were taking these children from the street, training them in various skills, and then later on, helping them obtain a skill and, sustain themselves. Most of the times, again, we have seen, various organizations coming on board. And what we have seen are donations. Yes, donations are not bad, but we'll see, they're given a cap, a what, a footstep, and it ends there. But this has, in result, left an increase, seeing now children, coming on the rise in the street of Lusaka, especially young people. I did have an interaction, especially the young people we see in the street of Lusaka. Most of them are coming from Kawi. Where have we gone wrong as a country? Is it sometimes, can we say it's parent negligence? Because I remember that the time government was trying, back then, the program they had when they were trying to reunite these street kids with their families, most of them had, most of the time government found that, these people were coming from homes where others were just, maybe were not in good terms with their families and, would just leave the house. Is it parent negligence? Where have we gone wrong as a country?
Okay, on that one, me, I put it as parental attitudes, actually. Yeah, because there are so many causes of actually streetism, to say. But parental attitudes is one of them. You'll find that some of these street children that you are able to show on the streets, they are coming, some of them are coming from well, actually purified home, where everything is being accessed. They have 3 meals within the day, they have a lot of things, but it could be parental attitudes where sometimes our parents do segregation in terms of what we call value placed on the sex of the child. You find that there are homes where men are favored, boys are favored each and every time, and then women are not favored, or I can say girls are not favored enough. And then there are homes where you find that they like firstborn children, then they dislike the last-born children. Then there are homes again where you find that the last-born child is being favored a lot and is being liked by the parents, but they are forgetting also the what? The first-born child. So through that, you find that this child will sit down and then will start analyzing, maybe isolating him or herself, trying to analyze why is it like this. Okay, maybe in let me even use a Bemba term where they say maybe bali mpata favor family, meaning that maybe this family has got has put some barriers to make sure that this child can also be accommodated. So those are the problems that are there. And then the other thing is that there are those children that grew up with maybe single-headed family, to say. Maybe they only have a mother, and then they don't have a father. They have never seen a father. So they will be asking themselves again to say, where is my dad? Where is my... So whereby they are mingling with those with their fathers and whatever. They'll start questioning themselves. At the end of the day, they'll find themselves on the street. And then the other thing which is taking those children to be on the street is that there are those drivers, especially truck drivers, who give money to those children. So what we are emphasizing is that if those children, especially those below 10 years of age, they are not supposed to be given money when they are on the street, because if they are being given, then they will be telling other children from different homes to say, it's a timankaran and drama every day per road, so you should also be coming on the road, this and all that. As a result, increase in streetism, child streetism. So the other thing again is to provide actually awareness programs whereby we raise awareness programs to do with child streetism. Through that, then all the homes will learn, and the people, let's say guardians, will also be able to make sure that they take care of their children. That's what I can say. Maybe my colleague can add on as well.
Coming from a home perspective, for me, some children feel they're not loved enough, they're not cared for enough, and it could be there's no peace in the house, and the child is looking for something different. They're looking for love, they're looking for peace, they're looking for a certain happiness, not knowing to say the streets is not the way to go. And they when they're on the streets, they come across drugs. And you know, it's difficult to deal with somebody who is doing drugs, whether they're staying in the home or outside there. It's really difficult. So for me, I feel if they could look more into it, like families from homes, it starts from home. If the family, the parents could show love, you know, unity, and you know, be there for the children, be there for one another, and teach them that. That's what will bring about, you know, certain minimization on the street kids. Yes.
Interesting. Well, can you give us your concluding remarks? What is the take home?
You can start. Okay, in conclusion remarks, what I can say is, as an organization, we are a youth organization. The members who are there, the people who are there in it, they are all youths. But we have the patron who is being actually grooming us in everything that we are doing. So it's a call that we partner with many NGOs out there who can have interest to make sure that we eradicate the problems to do with the child streetism and also tribalism, as they are major actually topics that we are tackling as we have started. Otherwise, our race has been okay. We have been trying to do our best to make sure that we bring this issue to an end, so that at the end of the day, we'll leave Zambia or we'll leave in a better Zambia where everybody will be saying that there is peace, because currently the freedom which we have is the freedom of forming political parties. It's only politics where we are free. So these other things to do with economic issues, whatever, we are not yet free. So we are doing all that to make sure that we bring sanity, or we contribute something in terms of supplementing government's effort in everyday activities. Thank you.
And your concluding remarks?
Thank you. Let's show love and let's encourage one another into taking part in learning and knowing more about what's going on in our country, so that we could see ways in which we could end those problems. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. That's where we have to wind up our interview for the day. And interesting enough, we did have a good conversation. In case you missed out, you can still go back and replay this interview on our breakfast show stream, which is on Facebook and YouTube. And we had in studio the ambassadors of national unity and community welfare, and they did give us their perspective in terms of how they are helping out to address various issues affecting young people in the country. And now to just zoom out our guest, we zoom in this story where Petauke Central Member of Parliament Jay Banda is optimistic that lawmakers will support the motion to reintroduce the Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs. So let's get to listen to this story, and we'll be back on the other side. Keep it on Camnet. Before taking over office, the United Party for National Development, UPND, scrapped off the Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs. Among the reasons being advanced was that the ministry was not living up to its expectations of promoting Christian values and religious issues in the country. However, there has been concerns from stakeholders that Zambia being a Christian nation, it is illogical not to have a ministry responsible for national guidance and religious affairs. Petauke Central Independent Member of Parliament, Jay Banda, who will be spearheading a motion in Parliament to reintroduce the Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs, and is calling for support from his fellow members of Parliament.
If that motion comes on the floor, it will be able now, because there's no one who is not a Satanist who can shoot something Christianity. There's no homosexual who can push something or who can read Bible. You know, Bible is always read by the Christian and those who believe in the Christianity values. So it's also a test on when is the next week to see who those people are going to shoot that motion, which means they're the ones now who are doing what? They're the ones now who are pushing the homosexual agendas in our country. They're the ones who are pushing the job of the Satan in our country.
The church is urging members of Parliament to support the motion once it is tabled in Parliament. National Day of Prayer Director of Programs, Levland Maona Zulu, tells Camnet News that the Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs is needed, and that the United Party for National Development Administration can make it work effectively, unlike in the past.
Members of Parliament from both our political parties and independent, please bring in this ministry, vote for this ministry, not on political line, but seeing that to be very helpful to the nation of Zambia, as we are a Christian nation. We cannot be a Christian nation, then we don't have a religious affairs ministry. Even if there are a lot of there were a lot happenings, then also a lot of sayings pertaining to politicizing the ministry itself when it was there. I believe and trust that if the current government is able to see to it that the previous ministry did not perform well, then they are able to better it, to do more than what the previous government did.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
Join Pastor Moses Chiruba on National Matters this coming Monday, 24th July 2023. as they discuss honoring our national heroes.
The constitution of South Africa. And yet when Mr. Paul Osaka died, Zambia did not even celebrate that hero. He went to the grave, plain coffin provided for by the government of South Africa. And Zambia is one country where we do not sing songs for our heroes.
With his guests, Mr. Fabian Mumba, former senior principal, private secretary, State House.
When we see certain things going wrong, I think let's speak behind the scenes. Now, but I think my conscience will be clear, like what I've told you.
Time, 20:45 hours.
Invite others to participate through phoning on Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, and text messages. Make a date with us. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
We are deeply concerned by the rising cost of meal. The cost of meal is too high for the majority of our citizens. And we expect to see the role of government by way of intervention. Okay? Government is not just there to service the needs and interests of a few elements in government. It's about service provision to our people. The majority, at today's prices, the overwhelming majority of our people are going without food. And these are the areas that we expect government to show concerns that we have a huge population of our people unable to afford the staple food. So it's not just about propagating ideas or policies that don't benefit our people. We promised our people that we are going to provide cheaper minimum. We promised our people that we are going to give our people cheaper minimum. The question is, where is the cheaper minimum? The cost of minimum is beyond the reach of the majority of our citizens. Okay? It's shameful that we have not provide and act in the interest of the overwhelming majority who are starving.
Well, thank you for staying with us. We are back on the Camnet Breakfast Show. We're just zooming in some of the headlines and allowing our first guest to excuse us for the second interview. Now we are ready for our second interview. And in the studio, we have been joined by the Member of Parliament for Luena constituency, Iza Mubita Anakoka, is going to help us discuss various issues pertaining to development, especially CDF and current affairs. Being a parliamentarian, a lot of issues are happening in the country, and we also want to pick on his perspective. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you for the invitation.
We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, Miriam. It's good to be back on Camnet TV. It's my second appearance here. The last time I came here was in the night, and I had the pastor himself interviewing me. So yeah, I'm happy to make my second appearance, and I hope there will be more opportunities going forward.
Definitely, definitely there will be. How is our constituency doing this morning?
Luena constituency is doing fine. There's a lot going on. With the famous and the now unavoidable topic of CDF, Luena constituency is certainly making strides. The one thing that we've set ourselves to achieve is that if somebody last visited Luena constituency in 2020, when they visit it in 2025, it will be unrecognizable.
Why?
That is our target.
Why do you say so?
Because there is construction going on everywhere. You will find a hospital where there was a bush 2 years ago. And that's exactly what's happening in Ituku ward.
Okay.
You will find a school, 1x3 classroom, 2 staff houses, water supply system, where there was only a grass-thatched classroom 2 years ago. And that's what's happening in Ikwichi, in Ikwichi ward, at Iriseri. you will find a completely changed Limolonga Health Center, a new maternity annex, new mortuary, staff houses, 4 of them completely renovated, which had become inhabitable and dilapidated, and now they are occupied. You will find at Mupatu Primary School, where you thought people used to just walk through the school, you find there is a new classroom block there. It's now a complete square. And in the next session, in 2023, we plan to do more structures there, because that's one of the schools right in Limolonga town, the Royal Village itself, which is the most densely populated of the constituents. But we go further into the constituents. You go to Stoya Ward at Ichimba Primary School. There was never a permanent structure. Of all the structures, from staff houses to classrooms, there was nothing permanent. There is a 1x2 classroom there, completed and waiting to be commissioned. Because it's a quick summary I'm giving. You go to Nangula Ward, and by the way, Luena has got 13 wards. In Nangula Ward, at Nangula Secondary School, we are constructing the first boarding facilities for a secondary school. The entire district of Limolonga, which is also, by the way, Limolonga is a district, but as a constituency, it's known as Luena constituency. We are constructing the first boarding secondary school facilities there, which means we will have by January next year our first boarding school in the district. Now that's very exciting, because I know what that means for the children who are going to secondary school now. I grew up in Luena constituency. I did my secondary school, at least part of it there. So I fully understand how important education is. A statement that applies to all the schools in the constituency is that we are procuring over 3,000 desks this year. So by the end of the year, no child will be sitting on a brick or on the floor, as is currently the case in many of our schools, especially the litany of community schools that were just being constructed from the local people's efforts. So it has been a sorry sight, but it will not be a sorry sight 3-4 years from now. Already it's not a sorry sight.
Interesting. As we see these infrastructure development happening in Luena, are we also seeing the lives of citizens there, changing, improving? Have we seen a lot of young people and also women coming forth to tap from the constituency development funds and forming cooperatives?
Absolutely. In Luena constituency for 2023, we are giving grants to 143 groups. And we are very particular about the composition of those groups. Youth groups, women groups are the biggest beneficiaries. Because for the men outside that category, we encourage them to form companies. And they have done so. Luena constituents started a bit slow, but it has now become overwhelming. And so we look forward to actually the increase in CDF, because we now have got more people from deep in the rural areas of the constituents who are applying now even for loans. Because what they thought was only for the people with degrees, which was just a simple process of registering a company, we have encouraged them and sensitized them that it's not rocket science. Just go to Pakra in Mongu, they will tell you what to do. It doesn't cost much. Where they need a little bit of assistance once in a while, we chip in even with our personal resources, just so that they cross the very first hurdle. And then we get them to prepare their business plans. Of course, they need assistance. But you can see when they talk about the business plan in their own language, they understand what they want to do. They might just not be able to put it in a business language. And that we do try to help them, even from my constituent's office, so that they are able to access this money that's meant for them. We have also tried to make sure that in this process where we're procuring desks, we give as many opportunities as possible to our youths. Some of them are actually still in trade schools but doing carpentry, because they would have been doing this carpentry informally. But we've now sent them to school so that they back it up with qualifications. And we are already encouraging those youths to form companies. so that they also participate in the supply of desks, because when they are closed, they do have an opportunity, and an opportunity to meet the order requirements. And they do have some people that assist them. So there's a lot that's going on in Luena constituents, and we certainly look forward to the future with excitement.
Interesting. My follow-up would be that there's been concern, like we were interviewing young people before you came in, Honorable. There's a concern that empowerment programs are tilted towards the political party in power. For example, if it is like in your case where you are coming from the UPND, most members who are likely to benefit are those who sympathize with the UPND or those who are coming from the UPND. Like in areas where there is PF, it is those who are sympathetic to the PF who benefit. Is it the case in your constituency?
Certainly not in Luena, I can confirm. And if anyone in Luena constituency, Lumunga district, feels that they have been denied the opportunity, I would challenge them to call even a live program such as this one, or go to my office and say, the constituency office that is, I have been left out because of my political affiliation. My attitude from the moment I was elected is that there is no independent, there is no PF, there is no socialist, there is no nothing. There is only people that have given me a responsibility to represent them. So I do not entertain ideas of, no, you know, that one there, the chairman is somebody who was actually the campaign manager for so-and-so who was your opponent. I do not even allow such conversations to take place. That's a principled decision that we've taken, because our responsibility as members of parliament is for the entire constituency. And we know that one of the reasons that Zambians rejected the previous regime was precisely for that. You know, segregating people on the basis of these ones are not supporting us. Sometimes even challenging the citizens, telling them that you will not get any development until you learn how to vote properly. That's not the way to understand leadership.
As a parliamentarian, I want to find out, how do you justify this continuous call from members of your community or your constituency who are concerned that the high cost of living is beyond their means? Let's say the cost of meme, which is the country's staple food, like in the case of Lusaka, fetching around 250 to 300 kwacha in some instances. It continues to fluctuate around those prices. Citizens are concerned that this is among the reasons why the UPND administration was voted into office by citizens, to reduce the cost of living and make sure that, for example, the cost of the staple food is manageable, especially among vulnerable households. How do you justify such concerns being raised by citizens, Honorable?
Well, that's a very important issue, and let me address it first of all by acknowledging that if there is one group of people that fully appreciates the impact the high cost of meal has on our people, it is your government, the people you put in government, and that includes us as members of parliament. So the government is fully aware. That's very, very important. So it's not like the government is turning a blind eye and saying, well, we don't really care what's happening, whether people die or not. Absolutely not. On the contrary, the government is engaging in a systematic and sustainable way to address this. Now, let's accept a few things that are beyond anybody's control. One is, everybody knows that we are just coming from a very bad harvest season. The rain wreaked havoc across the country. It was floods, and then in some parts of the country, particularly in Western Province, even rice was affected, which is grown predominantly, or which is one of the most predominantly crop produced in Luena constituency. Because water came, good quantities, and then just when the crop was like, you know, blossoming, the water disappeared, and it became very dry. I'm a victim myself. I also grow rice in my constituency. You know? Interesting. So the rain didn't help the situation. Secondly, we have the international food crisis, which has been precipitated by the war between Russia and Ukraine. All right? And that has caused a lot of food inflation internationally. Now, I want people to understand the connection between these things. You see, when there is a shortage of corn, rice, or any other food item anywhere in the world, because food goes round the world, you know. Some of the chicken you are eating here in Zambia comes from Brazil. So if there is a shortage of food in Peru, you might think that, well, but how does that affect us? It is because there is all this international connection in terms of the food supply chain. Now, when there is a crisis in one part of the world which affects the food production, the impact feeds into the international food pricing mechanism. So it causes what is generally known as food inflation. All right? To take a bit of a while to explain how that feeds in. But you understand, when there is a short supply, demand is higher, inevitably the suppliers respond to market prices. And the international financial models that handle the food pricing international will factor that anticipated shortage in. That's the second factor. The last one is that government has taken a decision to set the floor price at a competitive rate, far much higher than it has ever been. Now, let me dwell on the last one, because this is the one that government made a decision on. The war in Ukraine, government didn't make any decision on. It's a situation we have to live with. The weather pattern is something you don't control. It's a situation you have to live with. But let's deal with this last one. Why was it important for the government to take all factors into account in setting the floor price by food reserve agents? You see, we have gone through this cycle every year. Over certain times of the year, minimum prices will go up. And this year it has been made worse by these other factors I've talked about. Okay? But maybe in terms of percentages, it's not the worst we've experienced. We've experienced worse before. Now, what the government has done is to look at how do we prevent this from happening in future. You can't prevent it from happening now because it's happening. But how do we prevent this from happening in future? One important factor in answering that question is to make the supply side of things attractive. How do we make maize growing attractive in this country? It's by making sure it's economical. When you grow maize, you should be able, if you harvest 100 bags, you should be able to say, well, I'm going to sell 80 and leave 20 for my home consumption and my extended family. But the 80 you are selling should be able to cover your cost of production for the 100 bags and leave you with some bit of money for you to pay school fees, buy salt, because you can't just eat meal alone. You also need to buy relish. Once in a while you want to eat a chicken. So you should have some capacity to run your small holding as a business. And that can only be possible when the price at which you are selling your product is competitive. Now, the other thing is, again, dealing with the supply side of things. Remember, we were crying about this rapid smuggling of maize and meal from Zambia into neighboring countries. Why is that the case? It's because, Patrick, you know that, well, if I buy a bag of meal here at 100 kwacha, I can go and sell it at 400 kwacha across the border. You do everything possible to make the 300 kwacha profit. That was a pull factor for smuggling. All right? So, by encouraging production locally, we are able to encourage official export of this product, because we will flood the local market. And the local market will also be competitive. So it deals with both the pull and push factors in terms of smuggling. So what basically I would say finally on this issue is that the government has gone for a solution which is sustainable ultimately, rather than the shortcut measures we've been putting in place over the years.
But the simple argument, Honorable, is that hunger does not wait for anyone.
Indeed, that's it's a very interesting argument, but I would argue that it's not compelling. Because look, the situation that we've lived with over the years, we now all know it's not sustainable. We've just been kicking the can down the road, and then we find the can again. In other words, every year we've been going through this cycle, and for political expedience, politicians like us have been making decisions that deal with the situation now to please the masses.
Yeah, because the argument has been that, for example, historically is that if there's no country where the staple food is too expensive. It was beyond the reach of many people. For example, in Zambia, we know that we still have the extended family arrangement where at one household we have about 10 people living in one household. So they'll be buying meal like on a weekly basis. They need a bag of mini meal. So all those factors, are you looking at those aspects? Then we saw some others from the UPND to say this government is doing a lot. They turned the country into a construction site. But if people are not going to appreciate that they are able to have 3 meals a day, then the efforts this government is making may go to waste.
Well, that's interesting. However, my counter argument or my counter view is that we are in this situation because of short-termism. Short-termism, Miriam, is talking about the issue of what can I do now in order to avoid a problem now? All right? Not to prevent a problem tomorrow. Okay? So because you are sitting on my right and she's sitting on my left now, and I'm like, well, if I do this, they will not be happy. But at least let them face this problem when I have left them. So I create bigger problems for you. So we have been sketching around this issue of food security in the country. We should understand that the government is already subsidizing maize production in this country through FISIC. It's already subsidizing. I've seen some people say, well, let the government subsidize. The government is already doing that. But we now have to walk through this chain, the food supply chain or maize supply chain, comprehensively, and say, where is the breakage? Where is the problem? And the problem is that our production is very low compared to our potential in this country. Even the small-scale farmers that engage in this will tell you, the experts will tell you that productivity, how much you produce per hectare, is very, very low compared to commercial farmers. And what have our commercial farmers been doing, who have been the mainstay of our production chain in this country? Because of the uncompetitive nature of maize, they have been switched to other crops, you know, sunflower, and where they produce maize, they are producing it specifically for stock feed. And they are producing it for locked markets where they already have contracts with big buyers, locally and internationally, and not feeding into our maize supply chain. That's why the government just had to deal with this long-standing issue. How do we take advantage of a favorable weather pattern in Zambia to make sure we supply ourselves enough maize for our own food consumption? That's the only way the price will come down.
I have to allow you to move away from that discussion for next time. But I'll move to another interesting aspect. We are aware of the National Prosecution Authority bill, that is the amendments that are pending. We want to get your perspective as a member of parliament, first of all. What is your take on this important piece of legislation?
Thank you very much. In fact, it was passed last week. So,
yeah, exactly. Now, going forward, what does this mean for this country? You have to...
First of all, let me explain that that bill attracted quite a bit of attention. That's because, from my perspective, there was a misunderstanding by many people. So let me state that outrightly. I and the party I belong to, we were in full support of the amendments. Now, what was this amendment all about? You see, the way the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is structured in this country is that it is a constitutional office, and that's the same in most countries. And that the DPP, as far as prosecutions are concerned, is the only one who makes decisions on what to do and which direction to go. The law prohibits anybody from interfering with that. Now, that is in the Constitution under Article 180. Now, then another law was created, the NPA Act. Okay, I think it was created, promulgated in 2008 and amended in 2010. But the latest one indeed is the NPA Act number 34 of 2010. Now, that was created in order to provide for the National Prosecutions Authority. So it's an authority. Then there is the DPP here created in the Constitution. Then the connection between these two is that the Constitution says the DPP is the head of the NPA. All right? Now, the NPA Act then created the NPA as a body corporate. It says so in the Act. It's a body corporate. Now, once it's a body corporate, it means it has got to operate in the same way that institutions like NAPSA operate, because those are statutory bodies, or RATSA, the best example, because that's a body corporate. The law that formulated RATSA says it's a body corporate, meaning that it must have all the corporate governance structures. So that act provided for the creation of a board of directors. And then it simply says the DPP shall be the chairman of this board. Now, here is where the problem was with this law, because I'm explaining why it became necessary to have this amendment. It just created this board, which means that it was entirely up to this board to decide how it runs the NPA. Now remember, the Constitution says that the DPP makes decisions without being directed by anybody, isn't it?
Yes.
But then now there is a board here, which has got no limits of what it can do. Now, the way corporate governance operates is once you have a board for a corporate entity, that board is concerned with the entire business of this entity, isn't it? Starting from hiring to the main business of this entity. Now, the main business of the NPA is prosecutions, which the law prohibits anyone from interfering with. So this board was created without any stipulation of what its functions were. That created a very big loophole. Very big loophole. It means that we left the DPP vulnerable. People who would be appointed as members of that board could easily interfere with the work of the DPP. Now this amendment was brought in to ensure that that board is given boundaries within which to operate. And the law or the amendment made it very clear that they will not do anything that is the responsibility of the DPP, to protect the DPP. And beyond that, it spells out what they can do. So it's for the first time that you have a law that now is complete. It says what you can do, it also says what you can't do. In most cases, it just says what you, one of the two. It wouldn't go to deal with both. But because of the special nature of the office of the DPP, the amendment took that into account. So there was absolutely no confusion. So you hear people saying, no, the law is undermining the Constitution because the Constitution says the DPP shall not work under anybody's direction. There's nothing in the amendment that was suggesting the DPP will do prosecutorial decisions or make prosecutorial decisions under anybody's direction. Absolutely
But I would also want to ask you, because isn't it further interference of the executive under the affairs of the judiciary, because that board member is going to be appointed by the president also. And I think that's where the problem is, because the judiciary is still under severe pressure from the executive. And that the coming up with the board arrangement also puts further pressure on the DPP, because those people would be inclined, for instance, to the executive and the wills of the executive, and whatever the DPP wants to do, probably they may be dictated to.
I'm happy, Patrick, you're bringing that perspective, because that's some of the arguments that were thrown out there. On the contrary, what this law was doing is to prevent exactly what you are saying, by making sure it is written in the law that nobody can interfere with the work of the DPP. Whereas in the past, as the law was sitting, it was open-ended, which means the board, that by the way was already created in 2010 by the law, all right, but was not given parameters of how far to go and how far not to go. This time, those parameters have been set in the law. So this has been, the result of this amendment is actually to insulate and protect the office of the DPP better.
Who spearheaded the amendment process, and was there a thorough consultation?
Consultation
because even at the TVC media engagement,
exactly.
even engagement from other stakeholders in the law circles. But would that also be a source of concern to say, but why is this process being bulldozed?
Additionally to that, was there enough room to engage various stakeholders to get this consultation?
So, are you happy with this?
Wonderful. I like that. So I see you two have been following that matter very well. Indeed, there was a lot of consultation. The purpose of consultations is that you get stakeholder views. Now, ordinarily, you process the consultations that you get, and then re-examine. Is there any new understanding that we have got from this consultation? Sometimes you say, oh, yes, there's something we didn't think about. Sometimes you say, well, it looks like we didn't think through this whole thing altogether. So let's get it restarted. In this particular case, as a result of the consultations, and as a result of the engagements actually on the floor of the House, because when a law is brought, in this case it was, the amendment was being brought by the Minister of Justice. Anyone, any member of Parliament is free to make counter proposals on the amendment. So there were actually counter proposals made by some members of the opposition. In this case, I do recall that Honorable Mutoto Kafwaya, who is a presidential aspirant in PF and the Member of Parliament Volunteer, actually made counter proposals. And some of his proposals were actually taken into account as the law was going through the various stages in the House. So some provisions that were there in the amendment were deleted. Others were then brought in order to incorporate that understanding. So yes, there was a lot of consultation. Now, maybe what you are interested in is, but if there was a lot of consultation, how come you still did this when maybe stakeholder A or stakeholder B said you shouldn't do any of this? Like I said, when you are doing consultations, you are picking ideas from all over and then ask yourself, any new understanding? In certain cases, you say, well, they are opposing, but they are not explaining why. Sometimes people just don't like it. No, but
as you wonder, could it be that the arrogance of numbers is giving you the impetus to do as you freeze on the right side?
One of the things that this government doesn't do is to use numbers to pass things without laws without engaging in a debate. You will notice that maybe this was one of those. It wasn't a very long amendment bill, but it was debated, I think, for 3 days. You know, for 3 days, because people were engaging on one paragraph, one sentence. There will be engagements in the House. And I think in one of those, our colleagues even walked out because when you know that, well, maybe you're not putting up a strong argument, and you know that, well, since my argument isn't really standing up to scrutiny, I might as well walk out so that I take my protest to another level, which is a democratic right. But it's because there was a lot of engagement, both on the floor of the House and outside. So there was no use of arrogance, no issue of arrogance of numbers coming into play.
Your concluding remarks, Honorable.
Your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I would just like to say that, look, when it comes to this government's position on issues of governance and accountability, the one thing that the people of Zambia should not push their government to do, and I repeat, not push their government to do, is to make decisions for political expedience. So I'm happy that a lot of Zambians are supporting, for example, the decision to clean the streets. You see, all these are decisions that have pended in previous governments because people are scared of the so-called political consequences. But that meant that we are putting politics ahead of our own development and our own benefits. What this government is doing is, let's by all means look at making decisions that lead into sustainability of our economic growth, sustainability of the job creation path that we've set ourselves, sustainability of an effective and beneficial exploitation of our natural resources. And the list is even longer. Now, some of these decisions will be seemingly painful when they are being made. No country has ever succeeded without a little pain. None at all in the world. Otherwise, we will be talking about, no country is doing this. But you're not asking yourself, how did these countries get to a point where what is happening here isn't happening in their countries? You just want to get to where they are now. But you don't want to walk the journey they have walked through to get there. So let's walk together and get there. The pain might be unbearable sometimes very, very painful, but if we stay focused, we will have a sustainable future instead of the political expedience we have been dealt to in the past for many, many years.
Thank you. Miriam.
Anyway, this is where we come to the end of our program this morning. Honorable, we are glad that you could join us on set. We wish that we'll extend the invitation for next time.
At your disposal. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much to our viewers who are watching us this morning. Please do make a date with us tomorrow morning as you join me, Miriam Kaimba and Patrick Soko. For now, it's bye-bye and stay blessed.